in the critical minerals. It will allow them to develop industry that will allow them to take advantage of that. The EIA report on reaching net zero points to the fact that part of the solutions to the world reaching net zero will be from technologies not yet developed. And this is in line with our view, where we say energy transition is about reducing emissions instead of about changing technologies or moving from coal to renewables or something to that effect. And we believe that looking at the transition with this lens allow us to think innovatively about the problems that we are facing and gives us the opportunity to want to deploy local solutions. I am wrapping up, panel moderator. As I conclude, let me also share that I had a privilege to attend 2 international discussions on energy in the last week or so. And it was interesting to see that everyone is grappling with the same issues that we are grappling with here in South Africa in terms of dealing with the issues of the energy trilemma. Even those that are being put forward to us as examples to follow. There are issues that they are still dealing with. And for me, the message here is that we are often too hard on ourselves as a country, and we sometimes don't actually recognize the gains we are making in transforming the energy sector, despite, yes, the energy challenges that we have. Program Director, let me end here, but end by saying the energy transition is not going to be a smooth path. There are going to be bumps along the way, and mostly because there are factors that are outside of our control that will always take us out. But what's important is to ensure that the trend keeps pointing in the direction that we want to go, which is reducing the emissions. Thank you.
Thank you, DG. DG, I think that was a mouthful, and I like the fact that you defined energy as not just electricity, but more than just that. It's a pity we gave you such a short time, because it would have been nice to look at the other angle of energy, but I'm sure my panelists will touch on that. Thank you. So the next session, lady who's up, ladies first, is Lungile Mashele, who is an energy and infrastructure specialist at the PIC. This is not doing justice to her, but we're not going to go there because we're trying to save time. We'd like to hear the wealth of experience. Over to you, Lungile. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
7 minutes.
7 minutes, here I go. Thank you. As Huse has introduced me, my name is Lungile Mashele, Energy Specialist at the Public Investment Corporation. I look at energy and infrastructure, and we have about 16 billion rand invested in the energy space in South Africa and on the continent in general, but most of this is in South Africa. That 16 billion might sound like a lot, but in reality, it's only 5% or 6% of our assets under management, which is about 2.6 trillion rand. Over the last 3 years, we have managed to grow this by about 33%. This is just to give you the scale of the entity that I'm proud to work for. In terms of what we've been investing in, obviously energy, various types of infrastructure, transport, it's in tourism, it's in agriculture. But today I've been asked to come and speak about the transition and to speak about its impact on each person in this room, but on broader society and the economy. So I'd like to bring in the OECD. So the OECD basically says that they encourage a transition for every country around the world, but they say it should be premised on 3 things, and in this particular order. The very first thing is energy security, followed by tariffs that are reasonable, so pricing, And lastly, decarbonization. You cannot chase 3 unless you've achieved 1. You cannot chase 2 unless you've achieved 1, in that order. There's 3 things I want to plant into this audience today, especially as members of the BBC and people here and South Africans more than anything. The first thing is that just energy transitions are not cheap. They are expensive. They require incredible amounts of money with regards to tariffs, with regards to capital spend, operational spend. They are not cheap. Across the world, countries that have forged ahead with transitions have found themselves paying a very hefty fee in terms of tariffs. But more importantly, if you look at a country like Germany, for instance, through their transition, they've even found themselves on the other side where they're deindustrializing. They're so uncompetitive that nobody wants to do business there anymore, and they would rather go to nearby France, which has cheaper tariffs because they are using nuclear. So that's the first thing. Secondly, very emotive but very important topic is that of land. Transitions need land. Transmission, distribution needs land. Generation projects require land. If you look at a typical land lease agreement, for instance, in the Northern Cape, where you've got your renewable energy plants, they are based on revenue, or they're based on the energy that is generated. So let's assume that this IPP is generating about 2 billion rand a year on revenue alone. Their lease agreement states that it should be anything between 0.8 to 1.3%. For the sake of math, let's just say it's 1%. That means that every year this IPP needs to pay this landowner 20 million rand for rent. I'm not going to do escalations, I'm not going to do CPI, nothing. But I just want us to multiply that 20 million rand over a 20-year power purchase agreement. That is 400 million that is paid to this one landowner over the life of this plant. This 400 million is of course built into our tariffs, you and I, as we sit here. But more importantly, do you know what that 400 million does for that family? That is generational wealth. That family will never have to work for as long as they live, for centuries. But you see, if we had had adequate land reform in this country, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because that land, instead of belonging to one person, would have belonged to 100 people. Imagine what that 20 million per year would have done for 100 families. Oh, ngiyabonga uNkulunkulu wami. And just the last point around just energy transition and our economic vision. DG touched on this earlier on. If we strive to be an industrial economy or a services economy or call center economy or whatever it is, but let's define it. Once we've defined it, then let's make sure that our energy security speaks to our growth trajectory as a country. DG and I have had this conversation in the past around the modeling that goes into the integrated resource plan, because for the most part, it does speak to a low growth trajectory. And rightfully so, they're saying these are the numbers that they receive. But if we keep on modeling 0.6% growth, 1% growth, it means that the energy that we're putting in is going to speak to a 1% economy. We're not going to grow and become an 8% economy. So those are some of the thoughts I just want us to think of as we sit here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lungile. That helps set the scene again, following the DG. And the next speaker that we're going to have is Mr. Vaslat Bayoglu. He's a managing director of Mana, a well-experienced person who has been involved with Richards Bay Coal Terminal and many others. I will let him introduce himself. I know he's keen to use all of his time. 7 minutes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got 40 seconds from Lungile. Bonus. Yeah, Thank you for Black Business Council inviting me to talk about the keynote speaker's speech. And yeah, my name is Vuslat Bayoglu, and I'm a managing director of a company called Menar. We have operational coal mines, thermal coal mines, anthracite, and we also do manganese in Northern Cape. So I think I should start with giving the credit to DG and the minister. Without them, I think there would be a dead coal mining industry in this country. And I think our load shedding problem would be much bigger than what let's say we had, because in the last 30 days, we are not having load shedding. And I'm glad that Dan Morakane is not here, because he doesn't speak, he delivers, it seems, which is a great thing. So let me start with this. If, let's say, two people go to a personal trainer in a gym in different backgrounds, different weights, different ages, different genders, and if the personal trainer gives the same training to these two different people, it wouldn't be right. Or if a doctor, for instance, gives the same prescription to two different patients, again, coming from different ages, different backgrounds, and different complaints, it will be wrong. So currently what's happening is South Africa is being imposed Germany's just transition policy. And unfortunately it's not working, because Germany is 6.5 times bigger than South Africa in terms of economy. And they have other countries around them. So it's not an island like South Africa. South Africa is island in terms of energy security, because we don't have strong countries around us that can supply us power. So this imposed transaction, or imposed transition rather, just transition, is not really workable for South Africa. And we saw also, you mentioned earlier, achieve that. It's impossible, because solar gives us power 6 hours a day, and wind maybe 5 hours, lucky, if you're lucky, it's 6 hours a day. So what happens 18 hours of the day? We need base load power. I give this example, like if you ask Saudi Arabians to stop extracting oil, they will not even respond to you. They're making 10 million barrels a day. That's their bread and butter. So for them to have that economy, they need to have that oil to be extracted and sold. So what is our bread and butter in terms of energy? It's coal. Whether you like it or not, but it's coal. So I want to read something that UK Energy Secretary, actually they call it this minister, UK Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero. So her name is Claire Coutinho. What she says is, if countries are forced to choose between clean energy and keeping citizens safe and warm, believe me, they will choose to keep lights on. Okay, so this is coming from UK. We had a very unique situation in South Africa. I normally see ministers going to like opening things, right? So I witnessed a minister who is currently a